and the Dragon by Roger Hargreaves. Mr. Tickle was having a very good day. 21 people well and truly tickled. A very good day indeed. But when he arrived home, he could not believe his eyes. "I cannot believe my eyes," he said to someone burned down my house. Mr. Tickle's house was gone. All that was left is a smoking charred pile at the end of his garden path. There was more smoke rising at the end of the lane. Mr. Tickle set off to investigate. The smoke was coming from Mr. Funny's shoe car. Or rather, it would have been his car, but all that remains was a burned shoelace. Mr. Tickle could only see another spiral of smoke in the distance. This was Mr. Clever's house, and that nearly Mr. Clever by the look of him. "I just got out of time," said Mr. Clever. "There can only be one culprit. It must have been a..." But Mr. Tickle did not wait to hear what it must have been. He had spotted the signs of another fire and was determined to follow the trail. It was a long trail which led from Mr. Chatterbox's burned out phone booth to Farmer Field's burned down farm. Burned down barn and on through wilder, bleaker land, up into the mountains. Soon it began to get dark, but Mr. Tickle continued to climb higher and higher. Darkness had fallen, where he saw a bright light in the distance. There was a cave emitting a red glow. Suddenly, Mr. Tickle did not feel brave. Suddenly, he wished he had stayed to hear what Mr. Clever had to say. Mr. Tickle decided to wait there until the morning. He curled up under a bush and wrapped his arms around himself 3 times to keep warm. Mr. Tickle fell into a surprisingly deep sleep, and the sun was up when he was awoken by the rustling of the bush. Mr. Tickle opened an eye. The bush rustled again. "I know you're in there," rumbled a very deep voice. "Come on, show yourself." Mr. Tickle cautiously poked his head through the top of the bush and stood blinking in the bright sunlight. He was quite unprepared for the sight that met his eyes. It was standing face to face with a dragon, a huge dragon by that. A huge dragon with smoke curling from his nostrils. Mr. Tickle gulped. "Hello," said Mr. Tickle in a tiny voice. "I'm going to give you 30 seconds to give me a good reason why I shouldn't burn you into a crisp," bellowed the dragon. "And I'm going to burn you into a crisp." Mr. Tickle gulped the second time. Mr. Tickle needed to think fast. He realized his arms were hidden. Quick as a flash, he set one of his extraordinary long arms snaking through the bushes and entered the dragon's belly. Mr. Tickle flexed his fingers and hoped beyond everything that dragons are ticklish. The dragon instantly crumbled into a giggling, laughing tangle on the ground. "Ha ha ha!" roared the dragon. "Hee hee hee!" wheezed the dragon. "Ho ho ho!" boomed the dragon. Stop it!" he cried. "I'll stop tickling if you promise to stop burning things," said Mr. Tickle. "Anything, I'll promise anything," pleaded the dragon. Mr. Tickle stopped tickling and looked at the dragon squarely in the eye. "What you need to learn," said Mr. Tickle, "is to put your fire breathing into good use. You should be using your extraordinary skills to make people happy. I'll show you. The dragon lay down the ground, and Mr. Tickle hopped on his back. Then the dragon shook out his great wings and took off, circling high over the mountains and swooping down to the distant valleys. They flew lower and lower, passing over barns and cottages. "Look," cried Mr. Tickle. "It's Little Miss Splendid's house. I have an idea to your first good deed." Mr. Tickle the dragon stood beside Little Miss Splendid's swimming pool. "It is too cold today to swim in Little Miss Splendid's pool," said Mr. Tickle. "Do you think you'd do anything about that?" The dragon thought for a moment. They took a deep breath and breathed out his nostrils. Flames licked across the surface of the swimming pool. In no time at all, the pool was steaming. Little Miss Splendid was delighted. Mr. Tickle, the dragon, and Little Miss Splendid had a very enjoyable swim. In fact, the dragon had a very enjoyable day. He melted the ice on Mr. Bump's path, and Mr. Bump couldn't have been happier, as most mornings he usually slipped and bumped his head. He warmed up Mr. Forgetful's cup of tea, which he had made at breakfast time and forgotten to drink. Mr. Forgetful was delighted. He doesn't normally get to drink hot tea. And Mr. Greedy was very impressed when the dragon cooked 50 sausages all at once. By the end of the day, the dragon had a big glowing smile on his face. "You know what?" He beamed cheerfully. "I feel really good." Mr. Tickle grinned, then he reached out his extraordinary long arms and tickled the dragon. "And now I do too," he laughed. Coke. Will you stop talking about tickling people? This is an explosive stress ball. Dairy milk. Dairy milk is really explosive. Oh, look, Mr. Stubborn. Someone left a stress ball. "What is that, Miss Calamity?" "That's a stress ball." "This is not a stress ball. This is a donut." All I can see is that stress ball in the ground, and that piece of cake, and that, what's that? I think it's a explosive Coke. I don't like this ball that much, and I'm going to kick you two out. I was thinking they've died. Yes. Let's see what this stress ball, I think it looks like, Mr. Nosy. Did Mr. Tickle's dragon flame it? He hasn't flamed it. I'm thinking he's going to its punch stick. I'm going to scare this thing away. Boom! No, not Little Miss Calamity. Why did you bump me over? I'm ruined. What the heck? I think he's dying, and what the... Mr. Noisy, how in the actual world did he explode himself with his Nikes? Yeah, that boy is not confused. Mr. Noisy, I'm thinking he's going to explode your Nikes. I'm exploding his Nikes. Oh no, not your Nikes. Fine.